Hey, Catalyst. Welcome to this episode, which is actually not like any I've ever filmed. I'm getting real. I'm letting my hair down. This is a very non-aesthetic episode that I've titled The Surrender and Acceptance Tour. So a couple trigger warnings. We're going to talk about the recent election. We're going to talk about grief. We're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about divorce and separation. We're going to talk about sadness. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff here. This is like you and I are sitting together and we're having coffee. So it's not your typical episode. There isn't a framework. There isn't takeaways. Although if you stick to the end, I do believe this will help you because I'm going to share with you how I am getting through this whole season of life through grief. I'm going to share with you the 3 steps that I use and how I show up every day when my heart is broken. And I hope this podcast helps you do the same. So give it a listen. And if it becomes too much for you and you need to pause or you abandon it, that's okay. Whatever you feel is how you feel. And also, please let me know what you think. I really, truly want to hear your thoughts. And I care about how you're doing, even when your heart is broken. So, without further ado, here is the Surrender and Acceptance Tour of 2024. Hello, brilliant brains. This episode is going to be different. I'm sitting here in my office wearing my most comfortable, cozy clothes and what I've termed my intermission haircut. I'm just showing up. This is not an agenda. There is no pre-planned bullet points or takeaways. I'm filming this several days after our presidential election, and there's a lot of turmoil in our hearts. And before you at me, as the kids would say, I'm going to do my best not to center myself in this discussion. This is not about me. I'm sharing a glimpse in how I process trauma and grief. And if it helps you, awesome. I find the tools of processing that are most helpful to me are creative tools. Writing, painting, dancing, singing, moving. And many of you may have read my memoir, Right Brain Rescue, where I wrote about my very real burnout that happened over decades in family medicine. And that was really a process for me. As much as I enjoyed writing it and people found humor or they found a mirror into themselves, that's a wonderful byproduct. But it was a love letter to myself that I had gone through this transformation and made it out the other end. Now, fast forward, I don't want to write another memoir. Today's podcast is like a mini glimpse into my processing. This is how I am processing this shift. I'm calling it my Surrender and Acceptance Tour. And before you think that means I'm just surrendering and accepting, it's not what you may think. And I'm going to do my best to explain. I don't like the outcome. I voted with all my heart for Kamala Harris. And I'm not a political person, dare I say, because that's a privilege. I'm a white-skinned woman who has that ability to say, well, in the past, I don't do politics or I'm not very active. As I've grown older and wiser, I've become more and more active. And this was the most active I could ever be in this election. I donated, I attended webinars, and sure, I could have done more. Every day I could still do more, but every day is a balance for all of us to choose which activities we can dedicate our energy to without sacrificing our peace. So I did the most I could, and I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for many reasons that you all share with me. You hope that people see your ideal future vision in the same way you do. And that's not always the case. And that can be devastating to discover that dear friends and neighbors really aren't seeing the same values that you do. And it can feel appalling, like a slap in the face, and nauseating and sad and hopeless. But this is growth. This is what happens. The pain, the grief needs to be felt. And as I'm reflecting over these last few days, I put a post up, I think within 24 hours maybe, I don't know, of the election results, where I said, a lot of the people I love are devastated today. A lot of the people I love are celebrating today, and I choose to center love. And no matter how you read it, it could read as soothing to your soul, right? It could read as inspirational. It could also read as dismissive and minimizing and toxic. And I get all of that. So as the kids would say, don't at me, bro. Go ahead and at me. And this is how I learn. I'm on my own individual journey of spiritual evolution where I'm unpacking my ancestry as well as the people around me. So I'm reading books like Grandmother's Hands and, Call Me Lioness. And I'm really trying to learn about all the cultures that influence this world. And it's helping me choose the kind of person I want to be to show up in this world. And as I watched the comments pour in under that post, I reflected on each one, and I noticed in my body that some felt really good because they thought like me, right? They understood my intention behind those words. And of course, some caused activation or triggering in my body. They didn't understand or didn't get the intention behind my words. Because obviously, it could be interpreted. Words are just one form of communication we have in this human meat suit skeleton body full of electricity. It's the best I could do at the time to show my inner peace and wish for a world of peace that is filled with love, because that is what drives me. That is what drives my services for my patients. That is what drives how I am a mentor and how I help practitioners. That drives every single thing I do with my kids. And so I held those people in my heart with love because, sure, it can sound like I'm minimizing and deflecting and trying to placate both sides, but it wasn't from a people-pleasing standpoint. I've been there, done that, checked that box, and I'm done people-pleasing. That's why I'm recording this podcast, to give a glimpse inside my authentic brain without any platitudes or false masks. I mean, look, I am here in my workout clothes, my favorite cozy sweater, because it's November in Wisconsin, it's starting to get a little cold. And I am not trying to be aesthetic. This is the least aesthetic podcast episode I'll probably ever film. But right now, it's been the most enjoyable so far. It's like we're having coffee together. Or tea. So since we're being authentic here, this is my favorite tea. I do not get commissions, but Pukka tea, peppermint and licorice, just so you know, is like the best tea ever. It's sweet, without sugar, no caffeine. Okay, but let's get back to the topic. So I've been spending these last few days listening deeply to creators on TikTok and Instagram, people that have brown and black bodies that I can learn from. And I'm learning so much, and I will continue to learn, and I will continue to make mistakes. And maybe even now some of these words are just not resonating, and in your own interpretation, you might be offended, and that's okay. I welcome that. I want people to at me, come at me, tell me where I can learn. But what I can say is I'm devastated, and I'm so in love with this world and the people in it. Did you know that burnout is the same brainwave pattern as grief under a functional MRI? This means that 63% of us in healthcare are showing up to work every day immersed in burnout and grief. No wonder we have brain fog and emotional exhaustion and depersonalization. We're on autopilot, just going through the motions. But the good news is there is an antidote. The opposite brainwave pattern is flow, the only time where your brain produces all 5 neurochemicals of happiness. And better yet, you can teach yourself to prime your brain for more flow in your work-life masterpiece. In my course, Catalyst Reclamation, I teach you my 3-step AHA method so you can practice finding more moments of flow. And when you do, you increase your happiness, your well-being, you lower your cortisol, and you flourish as the catalyst that you are transforming healthcare. So come color outside the lines with me and go to drlaurasalyer.com/shop and check out the 10-hour AMA-approved CME course, Catalyst Reclamation, so that you can step into your highest creative power. It's so hard to move through grief. When your heart is broken, it's so hard to continue moving forward and breathing. When your heart is broken and you're sitting in grief, the only thing you need to do is do whatever your body says to. So for some of my friends, that meant screaming or crying or punching a pillow or going silent or mute. It's all okay. Whatever you need to do to help you move that energy through, because it's energy that is personal to you. As it filters through your mind and your soul, it's going to kind of transmute in its own way. But the key is don't get stuck wherever you are. Keep it processing. And that's how I handled burnout in 2016. And the idea came to me that, I've done it once before. I can do it again. I used a template to move myself through a deep burnout where I fell out of love with my career in medicine, at least in traditional primary care. And I no longer felt like I belonged there, even though I loved my staff and I loved my patients. It just wasn't fitting where I wanted to go. And I didn't have many things figured out at the time, but I knew that with each step I was getting kind of warmer. You know that game you play as kids, like you're getting warmer, you're getting hotter, you're getting colder. And that's how I was leading my life. I was just sort of intuitively looking around and feeling every day, okay, this doesn't feel right. What about this? And read the book if you really want the story. But basically, I used creativity to process. I used a lot of this body work, this bilateral exercise like running, and then creativity to really dive into that intuition and hone it like a pilot light. And it has never led me astray ever since. So I'm using these same kind of templates, and I'm hoping to share some with you today to see if maybe this will help you through your own personal grief journey. And what you don't know about me is this truly is a grief journey. 2024 has been pretty abysmal, not just globally. I mean, goodness, you don't have to look far to see there's so many things to be unhappy about in the world, and to have that grief bucket in your heart overflowing, right? Genocide, war, famine, economy. I mean, if there was a dartboard and you threw a dart, any little number would be something you could find, right? And I choose to continue centering love through it all. My husband and I have decided to separate after 20 years of marriage. And I love him with all my heart. And I know he loves me. And this is not the outcome we would have hoped. It's still my favorite love story. We are two people that have grown and changed and evolved in the last 26 years. And I believe we are two very lonely people in our marriage and unable to find those tools to bridge the widening gap of our life perspective and our values. But we remain dedicated to our family because I know I speak for him. We're so proud of our family. We love our 3 kids. This news did not come quickly. It has been a quiet behind the scenes work in progress for years. And it became evident that the only way forward would be to separate. And so when we told our kids it was the worst day of my life, and the details are not for this podcast, what I can tell you is I have full confidence that we are even more immersed in love with our wonderful family. And I am even more dedicated to those relationships and that daily act of love and loving my children. And I'm in the process of moving out. And it's not easy. If you've ever been there, I'm talking to all of you, especially those that are moms. There's something that's just, we're different. We're made different. And it is very tough. But like my body and my mind and my soul felt years ago, I know each step I'm getting warmer. I'm getting warmer. And it's hard. It's literally why I nicknamed 2024 the Surrender and Acceptance Tour for me. It's going to be a year I will never forget, but it's going to be a year of transformation, because this is how I feel when things happen that are so painful and not something you want. Like an election of a president that does not value bodies and people that are not like him, that doesn't value other cultures, that doesn't uphold bodily rights and things like that are so basic in my mind. It's heartbreaking. Of course, I would not want to choose that, but it's there. So I have to surrender. I have to accept it. And I'm trusting. And I truly do trust that this is meant to be. There is something more expansive and cosmic that I don't understand with my human brain, that there's a reason this might inspire even more beneficial change. Because the story's not done yet. We don't know the future. And this is where I really watch myself in social media when I look and consume from other creators, even ones I absolutely love and adore. I don't want to get into this same kind of antagonistic fear, Chicken Little syndrome that some of them are going to help placate their feelings. That, again, feel what you feel, but that just doesn't help me. It doesn't help me to then use the similar kind of energy of fear and fighting, at least not right now. I reserve the right for the future. But for me, right now, I can't get into that space. I want to really curate my energy in the way that helps me show up every day, even though my heart is broken. I can show up every day for myself first, putting my oxygen mask on first, and then pouring all of that love into my work, my patients, my kids, myself, my dog, my art, my processing. That's what this is. This is my way of processing. And so how do you show up when your heart is broken? That's pretty much why I wanted to record this podcast, because how do you show up in a world that doesn't feel like it's yours? Or if you're a Black and brown person, you feel like you don't even belong, or trans, or, my gosh, the whole gamut of people that are just grieving because of this election. My heart goes out to them. So how do you show up in a world where you are just over and over and over told that the majority of your neighbors voted against you in your life? That's horrible. And this is not an attempt to center my personal stuff as a way to understand. I can never understand what that feels like. I will only continue my curiosity and attempt to understand. And I can hold a lot of empathy. And I will continue teaching and advocating. And my voice is getting louder and louder. I think Lara version 2.0 may not have recorded a podcast about this. I would have stayed in the shadows and just politely said, yes, I voted, and wouldn't have even dared to bring it up at a dinner or at my neighborhood functions. But I'm getting louder and louder because that's what we need. And maybe that's exactly why this outcome had to be, to get people that look like me to be louder. And that's awesome. And I kind of love that for us. I mean, I don't love it, but I'm trying to. I'm trying to see the love in there. So how do you show up when your heart is broken? Well, I'll tell you what's working for me. And if even one of these things helps you, then this was worthwhile. And if not, maybe you're folding laundry or you're going on a walk, and maybe this podcast is just kind of like wonderful white noise in your ears, while you've done that. Okay. So I believe creativity is truly a playful interaction with the divine. Okay. Even if you're agnostic, even if you're atheist, kind of work with me here. I have a lot of my beautiful atheist friends who are probably like listening going, oh my goodness. No, really, listen, just hold on. If you want to label divine as the cosmic force of physics and atoms and energy and stardust, as Carl Sagan would say, whatever you want to say, the divine is that beautiful mystery of what is, right? What lights us up, that spirit, that glow, that passion. And creativity is truly a dance with that. And again, before you come at me, people that say I'm not creative, shush, just hold on. Creativity is so broad. It is so expansive. It is how you decide to dress in the morning. What words are you saying that are coming out of your mouth? How do you like to walk through the world? Are you, reading? Are you writing? Are you dancing? Are you moving? It's beyond all of that. Creativity is truly what I believe your intuition. Creativity is medicinal because it is what you feel deep in your heart. And it's sort of like coming out. It's like self-expressive out of your pores. And this is why I absolutely love bringing this into everything I do, whether I'm delivering medical care to a patient or helping a practitioner in my mentorship. It is all creative energy. It is teaching them that they have that too. That's the essence of everything I do. It's helping them wake up to, wait a second, I've got this power inside too. I can dance with creativity. I can play. And it's not just to make something look good or aesthetic, because many of us can't. I am not an artist. I'm a creative person. But by all means, you can look at what I do. It's not artistic. If you think it looks cool, awesome, but I'm not trained. I'm just playing. And so when I show patients and my mentees that if you tap into this creative power, you get so freaking good with decisions and emotional boundaries and confidence and self-efficacy and time management. It's like everything falls into place. Everything falls into place. Because you're making decisions from your pilot light that's shining. And it gets brighter and brighter and more steady. It's like this steady source. And when you ignore it and you abandon yourself, you say yes when you probably should have said no, or you don't take care of yourself, that pilot light gets dimmer. And so that's how you show up in the world. When your heart is broken, you rely on your inner pilot light. And creativity is what fuels that. So it can be as simple as, well, we'll get to the tactics in a moment. I'm going out of order. Like I said, this is not scripted. But creativity is that chance to explore the tools you have to continue that pilot light. And this is why I'm still smiling. This is why I wake up with such gratitude. It is not delusional. Because I've checked myself. Am I dissociated? I know a little too much to be, I guess dangerous, right? I'm thinking, am I dissociated? Is this a freeze? Am I polyvagal and up that ladder where I'm just not even aware? And honestly, no, I am aware, deeply aware of the palpable grief and sadness and anger, not only globally, but in my personal life. Believe me. These lacrimal ducts have gotten a lot of work over the last couple months. And yet, I am so thrilled to be experiencing this. I'm so thrilled that I get to witness this amazing and confusing world. And I'm playing in it in my own little way. And like I tell patients and practitioners, when you start learning the power, because see, we're taught, especially as a healthcare practitioner, we're taught to uphold, strategies and, cognitive analyzation of everything from differential diagnosis to, what are the next steps? And I get it. I'm a type A person. I love a good SOP, a good flow sheet. It helps organize your brain. But that's not really where the true power is. And that's why a lot of things fall and miss the mark. That's why you can go into a practitioner relationship with your patient. And unless you really get into that little nugget good center of what really drives them, what is their spirit, what is their creativity, how are they practicing that every day, that sixth vital sign, all the strategies really won't do anything. And same with my mentorship. I wanted to build this mentorship in a way that I needed it 8 years ago when I was starting out. Because most mentorships, they give you those templates, the playbooks, the spreadsheets, and I do too, but that's not gonna, unless you know how to dive into that pilot light and that creativity and know how to make decisions with such confidence and clarity and that you are value driven, all those things. That's really the true sparkle and magic behind all of this. So, in these last few days, when I was underwater, feeling like levels of grief, not to mention, just to be superficial, I tore my right shoulder. So I have a slap tear. Like, I feel like in all perspectives, my life is kind of a big shit sandwich right now. Or is it an AFGO, another fucking growth opportunity? It's a little bit of both. And yet, I feel so peaceful and I feel hopeful. Why is that? So here is the takeaways, I guess, if there are any from this word vomit kind of podcast. And this is where the aha came to me as I was just feeling just so bad in the last 6 months, just getting worse and worse. And then the election, and I'm thinking, boy, I've got my grief punch card filled. And I'm sure many of you can think of it in your life. Maybe you've lost loved ones. Maybe you're going through a separation. Maybe you have had an unfortunate diagnosis. There's many ways you can find grief in this world and in your personal life. So I want you to think of that right now. If you're listening or watching, because I keep forgetting this is on YouTube. Hi, YouTube land. Conjure up a time in your recent life that you feel so burdened with grief. It feels so heavy. And where does that sit in your body? Just start right there. For me, it's sort of like, I think it's more in my throat, really like a lump in my throat, and then my shoulders. So when you think of that, what you don't know is there's a signature brainwave pattern in your brain when you are immersed in grief and you feel hopeless and you feel maybe alone or heavy. There's many ways you can describe grief. And it's the same exact brainwave pattern as burnout. And that's what kind of clicked recently. I went, wait a second, I've done this before. I went through burnout. I speak about burnout. That's my keynote. I give workshops about burnout. I've written and published a CME course about burnout and using creativity. Why don't I use my own information to help me? It's because your brain is so foggy when you're in grief and burnout. You don't even realize what's in there, right? Or what you have access to. So I'm just like you in that I was lost and wandering for a bit. And then I basically said, nope, I'm sitting down and using my exact same template that got me through years ago when I was burned out to now that will help me with my separation and the dissolution of my marriage, as well as this election results and the way forward so that I can continue showing up in this world with love. Let's talk about what burnout is and then the retro solution, the retro engineering of a solution. So burnout is 3 things. Depersonalization. You don't feel like yourself or that you matter. Hello. I'm talking to all the people that don't look like me, right? That's what you've been told in this election. You don't matter. You're depersonalized. You don't see yourself maybe in your job or in your neighborhood. You just don't feel like you belong. That's one aspect of burnout. The second one is low perceived achievement. Whatever you do isn't effective. So you feel very, I guess, impotent, to use a word. You just feel like it doesn't matter what you do. Low perceived achievement. You're not seeing a difference in any of your efforts. And then the last on burnout is emotional exhaustion. I get that. We're running on fumes. Maybe you stayed up all night looking for the results of the election. Maybe you're staying up all night nursing a baby. Maybe you're up all night on call. You're emotionally exhausted. So to alleviate burnout, to fix burnout, to, I don't want to say cure, because burnout is existing everywhere. It will always exist in the world, and you'll be burned out more than once. That's literally what I say in my keynote, and I had forgotten that in my state of burnout and grief. So these tools are important for you to understand. You're going to use them over and over again, and I have the recipe to transmute this burnout and literally retro-engineer a solution for you. And I call it AHA, because it literally is creativity, AHA. And it stands for AHA, right? Which, when you think about, if burnout is depersonalization, then A is anchor. We anchor into your values. I'll go into this in a little more detail of how I used it. If burnout is low perceived achievement, then we highlight little tiny milestones or gratitude. And then finally, if burnout is emotional exhaustion, we activate flow, the neuroscience of flow. So what does that mean, right? Anchor, highlight, activate, AHA. I'm going to give you an example, because sometimes stories and real examples help you more than me trying to, cognitively explain what this means with flow neuroscience and creativity. So the minute I remembered, oh my gosh, I could use my same solution in this depth, in this hole of grief that I'm sitting in with separation, with this election, with the world. And it looked like this. I started with the A, the first A, which is anchor. And I look for what anchors me in my values. And I look in my world, what decisions can I make today that align with one of my values? And I look for this evidence of where my values are and how I'm actually committing to them. And it looks like this for me. I paused and I looked around and I thought, I feel lost, but I value creativity and self-expression. And what I started doing is I started looking for things that I could move into my new home that really reflected that creativity and self-expression. I looked for color. I looked for personal, expressive things that were my personality. I looked around at other decisions I was making in my calendar. Am I making value-driven decisions that align with my anchored values? So I started saying no again to different invitations that didn't align with my values. Maybe it was an organization or a business that maybe voted differently than I would have liked. I've been known to return items to a store before I take the tags off if they didn't vote how I like. So I started to do that. It gives you a sense of a little bit of control back, right? Which burnout is feeling like you have no control. So I started filling my days with these value-driven, anchored decisions and felt a little better. Then H, highlight. And that can be hard. You can have a hard time finding gratitude, but you can find things. You can find something to be thankful for, whether it's just that you woke up today, or if you're not really happy to do that and you're a very existential place, then happy to take a breath, happy to meet a friend down the street, happy to know that you're not alone, that we're all feeling this with you. Highlighting, just looking for those highlights, because that will undo that low perceived achievement. Highlighting, okay, what is that one little glimmer that's something in my day I could be thankful for? Do you have a pillow under your head? It could be the most basic, but look for that and keep looking. The more you highlight these little glimmers of gratitude, the easier it is to find them. And then you can graduate to highlighting your own achievements. Did I put on clothes today? Did I show up at work or for my family? Or, I did the bare minimum, right? Have a good BM once a day, bare minimum. That's worthy of celebration. And that's how you're getting out of burnout and grief. And lastly, activate flow, right? Instead of emotional exhaustion, you look for opportunities to enhance flow, neuroscience, and creativity in your life. And what does that look like? Removing flow disruptors that block flow, and then adding flow enhancers in your day. And this is a topic that's a lot more to discuss. And if you're interested, you can get that CME course if you want. But this is not about selling today. So don't at me. It really isn't. I really want to help people unlock this brilliant magic inside them. And I'm telling you, flow is where it's at. This creative flow that just comes, it makes you feel so good. It is when all 5 neurotransmitters are going, all 5 neurotransmitters of happiness and joy. And it's not something you just wait around for it to strike. It can be planned with just tiny little steps. So I guess here's a couple examples. If you're looking today to find some flow and you're in grief and burnout, one flow disruptor that is the most common is interruptions, basically notifications, interruptions, fragmented time. And we all suffer from this because we live in a world now where everything is fragmented. So where in your day can you put your phone in a closet and can you be untethered to anyone or anything? I get it. If you're one of those listening because you're patting your little baby at night and trying to burp it so you can go back to sleep and you're listening to this podcast, well, okay, I guess you can't really turn the baby off, but you get what I mean, right? How can you carve out a time where there's no disruptions? Because that's the number one flow disruptor is disruptions. Another flow disruptor is just not taking care of yourself. So your physiology is depleted, right? So it's hard for your magic of creativity and flow to come into your physiology when you're not fueling it properly. So take care of yourself. Do the best you can. Yes, the day after I ate a full-size Snickers bar. Lots of inflammation, I know. But I'm a Midwest mom, so everything's in moderation. So yeah, I didn't feel too great after that. But then, since then, I've gone back to my, omega-3 rich diet full of trying to eat fish and eggs and fruits and vegetables and limiting caffeine, limiting sugar. I feel so much better. I've gotten better sleep. So just doing those bare minimum things if you can really helps. Those are the flow disruptors, is like improper fueling and lots of, distractions. So let's talk about some flow enhancers that you can put to activate flow and creativity in your day. Gratitude is one of them, believe it or not. It harkens back to that second step, which is highlight gratitude. But nature is a big one. And a personal story is I'm moving out of a home that is in the country where I have easy access to nature. I can look outside my window. I can go walk outside and I'm right there. Lots of trees and birds and animal life. And I can still find nature though, because if you don't know, I'm now an official plant lady. And if you've listened to my journey, I used to be the Dr. Kevorkian of green things. And to the shock of no one, I am growing wiser in my plant knowledge. And now I have this beautiful, probably a dozen plants. They all have names, by the way. We have Gloria, Spike, Lucy, oh my God, Susan, Fran, they're all I'll give you a tour someday. And I can get nature inside my 4 walls of my new home. And I can walk outside and look at the sky and the sun and the moon. Nature's always there. So you don't have to be a, CEO.com person living on the ocean to make sure you benefit from nature. You could be in a high rise in a city. And all you need to do is look at the horizon if you can see it, or find a cloud, or go and get a potted plant. All of this access to nature is for everybody. And it's something that can really get you in touch with that flow and help prime your brain to access more flow. So that's what I've been doing to show up in the world when my heart is broken, full of grief, and sorrow and burnout, and still learning that these templates work, this little recipe for activating your creativity, it lights you up. It really does. Scribble on a sidewalk. Play with your food on your plate. Can you create a little masterpiece with your food? Ask your 8-year-old self, what would you like to do? Did you like climbing trees? Go climb a tree. Did you like playing hide and seek? Go play hide and seek. Do whatever your 8-year-old wanted, because that is what your key to what lights you up, where it can lie. And most of all, keep love at the center. I know the world is hard and it's dark and it's sad, but I really believe and trust that there is something we just don't understand at play. And if we can love ourselves first, it'll then pour out of ourselves into others around us. And so love your family, love your neighbors. Even though my neighbors are people that didn't vote like I do and don't see the world like I do, I hold love in my heart for them and patience that are different, because that is truly what this world needs, is love for everybody. And what fuels love is self-expressive creativity. It's like a beacon of light so people find you. So go be weird. Go fly that freak flag. How many cliches can I put in one podcast? I'm not sure, but if you're counting, let me know. So I feel good. I feel like this was what I needed to say. And I welcome your thoughts. This is probably the most raw and unedited podcast I've ever recorded. But I'd love to hear how you're getting through this. We are all in a collective grief and burnout. So please take care of yourself and know you're not alone, and you are loved and you have love in your heart. And the way to unlock that is asking your 8-year-old self, what do you want to do to play today? And go do it. Send me pictures. What do you like to do? I would love to see. Thank you for listening. This is a long one, and I appreciate your attention. Time is a gift, and you gave it to me. I'm so honored, honestly. Thank you. That does not go unnoticed. So I will conclude with my usual. Keep practicing that sixth vital sign of creativity. Keep coloring outside the lines. And keep love at the center of this weird, crazy world we don't understand. And I'm here for you. Everything you're feeling makes sense. And I'm committed to continue learning and holding space for everything in my heart. So thank you again. And I'll see you next time.